Hello, Bree. Long time no
Hello.
see.
It's been a long time. I've been jumping around a little bit.
You think so? Yes, from one plane to another.
I
It's
may as well,
impossible to pin you down.
yeah. Well, yeah, I'm just waiting till I can get my own private jet and then it'll be much easier. No, kidding.
Well, we can organize that for you, not a problem. Well, thank you and welcome to Spotlight Fridays. We've
Thank
tried to
you.
organize it for quite a few months now. For
Mhm.
everyone who's joining us live, just some context for you. We are very good friends. We've known each other for many years. We actually used to travel together, facilitating styling sessions for Metallicas. This is how we met. So
Mhm.
Briony was our stylist that we appointed for the brand. And I must say, to this day, this is one of the best memories I have. It was a brutal trip.
It was a yeah. Do you know? I don't even know if you know this, but that was very early on in my career. So we're talking
I
close
know.
to it'd be like 14 years ago
Yeah.
now. Yeah, and it's still for me as well. It's still one of those times that uh, our connection and the way that we talked on those planes and just toured around Australia together. It was an amazing time.
Yeah, but for
Yeah,
us, but also for those customers, right? I mean,
yeah,
that was such a delightful experience to see
yeah,
them being so excited about it and creating these new wardrobes and the whole tactile experience that we're going to talk about it. But in a way, we started it 13 years ago. Wow, that was
mm.
revolutionary.
Yeah. That's true. I think maybe we were doing something then that we didn't realize was going to be so important in the times moving forward.
We didn't. We just followed the customer, right? So that was
Yeah.
the right thing for us to do. They struggled to put the outfits together, and the whole stretchy fabric was, and the layering concept
Mm.
was foreign to them.
Yeah.
But we nailed it through those workshops.
Yeah.
Anyway, fast forwarding 13 years later, and you're an
Yeah.
international image strategist, and you talk about how brands can create stronger, more sensory, and more seamless experience that connects with their audience. Let's talk a little bit about that. So, you worked across multiple countries. I mean, you just came back from traveling for months.
Hmm.
I do enjoy watching your content, by the way, when you're away.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about what stood out to you most in how these markets approach retail experience.
Yeah. So predominantly my work, I'm obviously based in Melbourne, Australia, but once a year I'm spending a few months overseas, predominantly in Paris, Singapore. I have some clients over there also, and Copenhagen and London are also areas that I will often pop into just to keep my hands on what's happening in the retail space. From my point of view and the work that I do with my clients, it's imperative for me to understand the stories that retailers are putting out there that will also resonate with the different types of clients that I'm working with. So, as far as the difference in their approaches, what I can say is I think it's very obvious that in each of these areas that I visit, there is a definite link to the cultural psychology of the place that I'm in. So when I visit the stores, you can definitely feel, for example, Paris, known as the fashion capital of the world, it has a seduction to it. And I think stores over there and the staff in their stores also have this ability to be able to tap into sensory design and seduce in this grand, fabulous place that is Paris. So I do the sensory design in Paris. I think is what they do really really well over there. Copenhagen, on the other hand, I mean, if you think of Scandi fashion and just Scandi in general, it's about simplicity. And I think again the cultural psychology there, the way that a store is set up is very clean. It's very easy. It's actually one of my favorite places to go because it's easy for me to understand the story of the brand and the story of the pieces, and it takes me through a journey to be able to pick the right pieces for my clients based on that very clean storytelling that they have. On the flip side is Singapore. So Singapore is a really interesting retail landscape, I believe. It is so clean and so just Singapore as a whole is so clean, and the way that they function, it's very rule driven and people really stick to the rules. But then when you get into the retail space, it can almost be a little bit standoffish or chaotic. So Singapore, which I'm going to share some stories about Singapore a little bit later on, but Singapore is an interesting space to me from a retail perspective. Australia, on the other hand, I think we're catching up to the cultural aspects that I'm talking about and the cultural psychology. I think we're still finding our feet a little bit on how our culture reflects in retail also. And I think we have a very diverse buyer as an Australian consumer as well. Because we're so far away. So we don't have the cultural references that a lot of the other places do, which I think is an interesting position that we find ourselves in from a storytelling perspective in retail.
This is incredible. I never linked this together, the cultural psychology and how retail reflects that.
It's it's so I actually think it's really important, more so for people who are traveling or who are working across international borders, which a lot of my clientele are working across international borders. I think it's really important for two reasons. Number one, um, when I'm dressing somebody and when I'm understanding what somebody's personal brand is, I think it's really important to have respect of culture when you are if you're working and you're holding meetings or whatever, you a speaker or whatever it is, to have that cultural reference is a really wonderful way to start building relationships with people. And from again, from the retail perspective, to draw people in based on culture. And we're going to talk about this, but this idea of aesthetic intelligence, so using aesthetic as an intelligence to be able to draw a story or paint a picture, enables people to understand what you stand for, and therefore creates your community of who's actually really going to be purchasing off you.
As you mentioned that, I was just thinking about Princess Diana,
Mm-hmm.
that she always matched her outfits to that country, the presentation, the situation she was in. And I can't think of anyone else who's been nailing it, but I think
Yeah.
she is the one idol for me that I could reference in this particular scenario. In many other scenarios, but we're now
Yeah.
talking about the aesthetics. But I think she was brilliant at it.
I absolutely agree. And so you remember it. And this is the thing about being in the economy that we are. And it is a visual economy. Let's not get confused about that. More people are looking at you online than you are meeting in person. So to make sure that you have those cultural references and respect and consistency is such a powerful, powerful tool.
Yeah, it is very memorable. I think none of us can forget at the moment she died, where we were, what we were doing, under what
So true.
circumstances. I remember the day so clearly, and it was
Yeah,
so
me
many
too.
years ago. Yeah,
Yep.
everyone I talk to, everyone remembers that.
Yep.
So you described yourself as sitting in the middle
Mm,
between brand intention and customer perception. I think
mm,
many retailers find themselves sitting in the middle. We just don't call it out like this. But
yeah.
what does that mean in practice to you, and why does that bridge matter so much today?
Yeah. So for me personally, I need two things to do my job really well. I need the client who has the problem, and I need help from the retailer to create the solution for the client. So they're the two things that I absolutely need. But what I have that both of these parties don't have is information. I have a bucket load of information about the individual and what they require. They are completely overwhelmed with how they begin to start tell that story and represent themselves in a way with clothing and with fashion. On the retailer's perspective, they've got an overall idea of who their client is, but I have so much information that I can go to them with and say, this is what I'm trying to create with this individual. Help me create the solution. That is the bridge.
Wow.
Mm, that's how I describe it anyway.
But it's so powerful. You're absolutely right about that information that you hold,
Mm,
uh, and that's the power that you have. Then you
Yes.
take that to the next level of whatever personalization
Yeah.
means to the brands and to that client. This is very powerful. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you that question.
Yeah. And I recognize that the position that I hold is actually, it's quite a unique one in that I'm using the psychology of the individual, but as with my answers and what we just spoke about previously, if I'm able to align this individual um, with the stories and the experiences that I know certain retailers can bring to them, then that is just a beautiful harmony and experience moving forward for my customer, who is a consumer, moving forward also.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Mm.
this is why there's a reason why I've engaged with you as my personal stylist for many years, to the point where I would hate to do a shopping experience without you. I actually don't do it. And you get emails or text messages from me. Is it okay if I'll
Yeah,
buy this? I mean, this is just to get to that ridiculous level. But because
that's everyone. It's not just you. Don't worry. My phone is constantly dinging of, I'm in a store. Should I purchase this? Does this fit in with my message?
But because you understand who I am and how I think and what I love and what I hate, no retailers could grasp that in that moment in time when I choose to go into store and I choose not to, as you know,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
actually I would like to avoid
You
it,
don't need
and
to. Also.
I absolutely don't need to. So I'll
Yeah.
have mood boards from you, so I have all of that. But this is such a powerful concept, though. So you talk about that a design that engages all the senses.
Mm. Mhm.
How can brands go beyond looking good to make people feel something, whether in store, online, or through their campaigns, you think?
Mm. Now you're going to have to like slow me down on this topic because I could talk about it for ever.
Let's start.
Yeah, it's very close to me. This is because I'm a visual storyteller. I'm not a wordy person. I hate words, dyslexic, none of that comes easy to me. So when I can see and feel being the word that I want to highlight here, that is that is what engages people. People want to feel something. So the concept, I use it with one on one with my clients, but it very much goes across into the retail landscape as well. And it's something that I've worked with you on with the brands that we've worked on before as well. And it's a concept that I call aesthetic intelligence. And so I'm going to answer this from a retail perspective of what that actually means. The whole idea when you have somebody who walks into your store or you shoot a campaign, we want to evoke an emotion. And to make an emotion memorable, we really need to tap into the human behavior and the human senses. So the five senses. So you want to connect with them. You want them to be curious about something. Do you want them to desire something? What is it that you want your campaign or your store to evoke? And how can we use sight, sound, touch, scent, taste in some occasions to really make an emotional connection? That's what I believe um, often gets missed, is using these five senses rather than just from a fashion perspective, rather than just the sight and the texture and the touch side of things. If we can create a story that enables somebody to just be like, wow, I'm so curious about that. I'm going to look further into this, or I want to touch that because that just seems like, oh, just evoking an emotion is the most important part.
So here's my question to you then. Which brand you walked into recently and saw their campaign shoots that evoked that emotion in you?
Actually, the one that pops up, it's not walking into a store. It's actually one of the shows from Paris Fashion Week. Took my breath away, and I was just watching this on my computer rather than being there in person. One day I will be there in person.
Of course you will. Maybe we'll be
um,
there together.
yeah, that would be amazing. But there was a few brands that just did the storytelling aspect to. Obviously, it was to showcase the clothing, and the whole point of Fashion Week is that um, there's buyers obviously there who are buying the clothing. That's the main point. But they did such a wonderful job of an immersive experience where it complemented the clothing and told an additional part of the story of the different collections of the brands. Yeah, they just took, I thought Paris. It's pretty controversial, Paris Fashion Week this year, but it took my breath away.
Why is it controversial?
There was a lot of new. This year has been the largest amount of new creative directors stepping into the space, and so this was showcasing their interpretation of quite a lot of heritage brands. And lovers of heritage brands often don't like change, generally speaking. Um, and there was like Chanel, for example. There was an interpretation of what a classic Chanel is, that has not been received, and quite a few of the other high
Right.
brands too.
We love creative directors.
Ah, I think it's incredible. It's incredible. Here's maybe a controversial opinion, but I do have an opinion
I
on
love
celebrities
controversial.
celebrities stepping into these creative directive roles. I just most of them don't work. They're going for a status rather than the intricate work and design of these amazing creative directors. Um, and that I think we'll find ourselves in the next few years going back to the people that actually really have honed in a skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
Otherwise, it's so misaligned. Agree.
exactly.
You mentioned that moment in Singapore where excitement turned into frustration. I
Oh
do
yeah,
have some, I do like some spicy views. Why
yeah.
do you think many retailers still underestimate efficiency as part of that emotional experience?
Um, I don't know why, but I can tell you a solution. To me,
That's
we live in such a tech savvy world. To me, there's no excuse to let go of efficiency when it comes to an experience, especially in store. The story, so I was in Singapore last week, and we were in a store, and Singapore can be a little bit funny because of the sizing differences, even though it might be a size 12, for example. The reality is the sizing is generally much smaller over there. So there's that aspect that the everyday consumer can get really frustrated about. I obviously know this, so I'm able to mitigate that, I suppose. But on this particular occasion, we were in a store. I was there with my client. We needed a certain size. The lady who was helping us went out and brought us um, a range of other sizes, but not the garment that we wanted. And then went back to check the computer at least 2 to 3 times to then come back and tell us that they actually don't have the size. And that is, my client was so frustrated, as was I, but I'm that middle person that has to balance that situation and balance those emotions. Um, but I just don't think there's an excuse for that to happen anymore. If you have an inventory system, it should be able to be seen right there and then if you do or don't have a size in place. So these small little interactions, um, if it wasn't for me, that client would never go back to that store because of that experience. So, how many other people are having these experiences and just going, I've got so much choice out there, I'll just go somewhere else? There's just no excuse when it comes to those kind of very simple exchanges with customers.
You know, Brie, I think you're quite unique because you don't have an easy job because you do need to act as a psychologist in many cases, and
Yeah.
this particular situation is a perfect example of it. Because to your point, the client got frustrated.
Hmm. Yep.
I got frustrated many times, and you've got this uncanny ability to calm everything down and turn it into a positive. I don't think it's easy. It seems like it comes very easy to you, but maybe
Mm.
that's at face value. But you're absolutely incredible at it, and I'm so glad that you do what you do because we,
Thank
first
you.
of all, we need glamorous people like you to show us the way how we look, how we should look, make an effort actually to look
Yeah.
better.
It's just an effort. That's all it
It's
is.
an
And
effort.
also, I will say, you wear clothing. It's just in how you choose which pieces to purchase, whether it's elevated or not. Like you don't, you have to pair, if you have to put a pair of pants on, why choose tracksuit pants when you could choose a really nice tailored, relaxed trouser? So it's just
Tailored relaxed. This is exactly right.
yeah,
Tailored relaxed.
yeah.
I
I know
love this.
everybody loves an elastic waist. That's fine. I can work with that.
Oh, this is too funny. So you've mentioned that technology should complement, not replace connection. I actually
Yeah.
totally agree with that. What are some examples of brands or experience that get that balance right, you think?
Um, certain brands what can I give an example of? I think technology is actually a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. I think we're in this really interesting space. And for those that probably don't know, I actually have a bachelor in IT, so I'm a nerd at heart. I can code, I can develop all that, and I did have a tech business as well. Anyway, that's another story. I think we're in this interesting time where tech is maybe a little bit more complicated than it needs to be because we all feel like we need to be using tech in some kind of a way. But one of the most effective ways at the moment that I see in stores is a simple education tool being an iPad or even on a screen that tells more of a story to help customers understand what they're dealing with. For example, um, let's take a jeans, or I'm not going to give certain names here. Just some do it well and some don't, and I don't want to associate myself with. But basically, if you have an iPad that you can simply flick through to understand the different sizings, there's now these amazing 3D body forms where you can interact, or the consumer can interact and twirl around with these 3D body forms to see size and fit. Anything that makes the customer, as part of the aesthetic intelligence framework that I just mentioned, that makes the customer feel like they're interacting and learning, which then translates into an efficiency when trying on, that is doing it really well,
But
in my
also, it
opinion.
increases that dwell time as well because the longer people engage with it, the longer they engage with the brand, and then
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to start building that relationship and the trust and getting to know them better and learning more about what they want. It's exactly what you do when you
Yes.
said you're connecting what the customer wants with what the brand has to offer that matches that desire.
Yes, absolutely. I also think it's a really interesting space, the digital versions of the products at the moment. And I actually love it. Some people don't really, it's ho hum to them, but I think moving forward, when we are looking at tech in the 3D space, to be able to go in and purchase a bag, for example, and know that you have a very unique digital footprint of that same bag, and be able to, because in some stores you can actually see the bag and again do the 3D navigation of the bag and help design little tweaks of the bag and all of that kind of thing. I think that that's a really lovely and interesting space, certainly for my clients, and the feedback I hear is they're excited about what that means for the future. They don't really understand it now, but the idea that they get this digital imprint of something they've purchased, um, I think is a really wonderful, again, sensory tool.
Of course, I'm glad you're
Mm.
excited about it. I'm not, but
Yes,
I
similar
might
niche.
I might arrive there. You never know.
I think
So
most people will. I'll give you a few more years and I think you'll be there.
I'm a slow adopter when it comes to those things.
Yeah.
Your work often connects appearances with influence and authenticity. How
Mhm.
do you help leaders or teams align the external image with their values and individuality? You're nailing it, by the way, but I
Mm.
think it's so important, and I really would love to unpack it with you.
Yeah, it's a big topic, and to be honest, a lot of people express in very different ways. So my process is, although there is a process, it's also has to take into account so many different unique qualities of individuals, of how they communicate, how they hear and understand things as well. But I have actually mentioned through this chat, I've actually mentioned to an extent the exact same work from a retail perspective that I do individually with clients. So I do work with the aesthetic intelligence. What does aesthetic mean to them? How did they, what's the feeling and emotion? It always comes down to the feeling and the emotion. How do they want to feel versus how do they want to be perceived? Um, and how can we use context and cultural influences, which is a context, in making sure that there is a consistency across all scenarios from a professional point of view in how it's represented within a wardrobe. So it's a combination of aesthetic intelligence, which we just talked about, and impression management. So it is understanding for the people that I work with, it's understanding from a professional point of view, where are you now versus where are you going? And I always work in the space of where you're going, because I like to make sure that I'm always one step ahead from an aesthetic point of view, because it really propels somebody to get somewhere a little bit faster if they've already got the feeling of confidence and the feeling of clarity around their direction, if their wardrobe is already complementing that.
That's brilliant. And the whole trajectory of whom you are becoming. I mean, you know it yourself because I called you when I left my corporate career and transitioned
Mm,
into consultancy. It was a very different proposition around my wardrobe because
yeah,
my the whole scenario changed. Everything's changed very
yeah.
quickly, and my wardrobe now, because of your involvement, reflects my lifestyle and my status now.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that even if your role doesn't change too much, your knowledge around your role and the work that you're doing and who you're influencing and the legacy that you're leaving evolves. So therefore, your image will evolve with that.
Beautifully said. I love that. The evolution. This is brilliant. Do you do personality tests on people before you get engaged with them? I mean,
Yeah.
this is
I mean, yes, nobody knows that I'm doing it, but I am
I would.
silently taking it all in my first initial session with people is normally about a half a day session before we even talk about clothing or wardrobe. Because really, at the end of the day, I really don't care what clothing you're wearing. I can find the clothing for you. But what matters most to me is to get that alignment of self versus the impression management side, all in alignment. And for me to do that, I have to understand somebody like you can't believe. So when you said that I'm part psychologist, I reckon I probably got some traits of a psychologist.
Yeah, you might be, but you're also a very good listener. And then the way you package it is brilliant. And
Mm,
you listen, you take notes, and then you receive this file. It's like, wow, this is actually describes me to a T.
yeah.
I have many questions, but I will ask you one more question, and maybe we will need to organize part two, just to unpack the whole retail scenario in
Yeah.
detail. If you could give one piece of advice to brands to build deeper emotional connection with their customers, what would it be?
Take them on a journey. Most people want to feel that they're being a part of something, um, and that can be anywhere. Well, it is everything from the interactions over EDMs through to an in store experience through to a delivery experience. It all has to feel like it is touching on the senses and telling a story and allowing them to feel like they're part of the journey.
Beautiful. I love this, Bray. And for this part one is come to an end. And thank you for everyone who joined us today. And as always, I really appreciate chatting with you. I know we tried to organize it for a very long time. I'm glad that you're in the country for 5 seconds, so I could just pin you down. But it's such a pleasure, Bray. You're a wonderful human, and I love everything what you do, and also watch you evolved over the years because I watch
Mm.
your evolution as a person.
Mm.
Because where you were 13 years ago and what you did and your approach to things, it's very, very different now and backed up
Yeah.
by with so many clients and the feedback from so many people and brands as well, and your international expansion. It's been tremendous. So
Thanks,
thank
Anna.
you. I
Thank you.
I really appreciate you, and thank you for joining us today. And to everyone else, happy Friday, and have a lovely weekend. I'll see you next week.
Bye.